You ever know a person who just doesn't seem built for the same world as the rest of us? Old Manny Pike was like that, thin as a cracked mast, always wrapped in that navy coat that smelled like smoke and salt and something older. He'd stand at the end of the Weatherby Pier before sunrise, same spot every day. Line dropped straight down into the black water. Didn't cast it out, just lowered it, like he was feeding a van rather than fishing. The pier's been half rotten for years, planks warped from brine and time, but it's quiet there, so quiet you can hear the fog breathing. Most mornings, even the gulls stay clear. I first saw him last fall. I was new in town then, still learning the way the lake fog smothers the horizon until up and down don't mean much. I'd see him through it, the silhouette of a man who could have been carved out of driftwood, hand steady on his reel. Morning, I'd say. He'd nod but never look up, eyes on the water. There was a story about him everyone half remembered, that he used to fish deep-sea charters back before the accident. What accident, no one could tell me. Just the one with the line, they'd whisper. Like that explains something. The rumor went that Manny caught something once. Something alive, but not in any book. And this is how it always went. He let it go. Some said it was guilt. Some said fear. Some said it talked to him. So one cold morning I finally asked. He was threading a hook with pale fingers, the air smelling of iron and lake mud. "What is it you keep waiting for out here, Manny?" I said. He gave me a slow grin, yellowed and small. "Just an old friend." What kind of friend hides underwater? The kind that remembers. Then he dropped his line and, I swear, the fog stirred like it exhaled. They found only his boots the next day. Sat side by side at the edge of the pier, laces neatly laid out, still warm. The reel was tipped over, line slack and wet, humming quiet, like a throat trying not to sing. The cops came, naturally. They said he'd slipped, maybe fell, drowned before anyone could help. But that didn't line up. Manny could swim and the lake was calm. Even the old-timers muttered that it wasn't a drowning sort of morning. So I took a walk down to the pier that evening, curiosity winning the argument with common sense. The line was still there, coiled where they'd left it, pale and slick, like something shed its skin. The end of it dragged off the dock and dipped beneath the surface, taut again, as if something below had taken the slack. I don't know why I did it. I touched it, just a fingertip at first. The line was cold, so cold it almost burned. Then, so subtly I might have imagined it, it trembled, almost like a heartbeat, faint and deep. I could feel pressure, as if there were miles of water below. The rest of the lake gathered around that single thread, my head filled with the sound of it humming, a low thrum that seemed to rattle my ribs. That's when I heard the voice, not in the air but in my spine. "You shouldn't touch what's remembered you." I jerked back hard enough to stumble. The air smelled like ozone and rot, and behind me, footsteps came quick. Manny's neighbor, Mr. Clarkson, waving a flashlight. "You shouldn't be here, son," he said, face pale. "It takes those who talk to it." "It? What is it?" He shook his head. He called it the deep line, said it was older than the lake, older than language. Once it knows your hand, it pulls forever. That night I dreamed in black water. The line stretched beneath me like a vein, pulsing. I saw shapes too long, too smooth, with eyes like pits opening and closing in the dark. One of them had a face almost like Manny's, but changed. When I woke up, my sheets were damp. My hands smelled like fish and iron. I didn't go near the lake for a week, but the dreams kept coming, and every time the hum grew louder, a vibration that shook my teeth. It remembers. On the 7th night, I couldn't take it anymore. I drove out there just before dawn. Fog like wet wool, thicker than I'd ever seen. The pier groaned under my steps as if warning me off. The line was waiting, coiled, patient, humming louder now in rhythm with my heartbeat. When I got close, the air around it almost buzzed, like static in water. I felt drawn to it, half terrified, half desperate to see what Manny saw. I said out loud, "You remember me, don't you?" The line twitched. The sound of it was wet and ancient. Then something tugged. Not a quick jerk, but a long, steady pull. I tried to step back, but my boots slid forward. The fog thickened, and in it I could have sworn I saw a figure. Manny, or what was left of him, standing waist deep in the lake, smiling with a mouth too wide. "Let it go," he whispered, but the line was wrapped around my wrist before I knew it. Slick as living muscle, it yanked, and I felt depth, not just downward motion, but falling through years, pressure, the slow crush of something vast below. My lungs burned, my ears filled with a sound like the world being swallowed. Then suddenly stillness. I was on the pier again, gasping, hand raw. The line was gone, snapped clean, humming no more. At the edge, just where Manny used to stand, something floated up from the dark. His navy coat, waterlogged but unrotted. Inside the pocket, a reel. The line coiled on it gleamed wet and faintly gold. Like a new nerve, it pulsed once, then stilled. I've kept it, though I shouldn't have. The reel sits on my desk now as I record this, silent most days, but sometimes in the late hours, when the fog drifts through town and the window panes sweat, I hear it hum. It's a small sound, easy to miss. Then again, so is Manny. And maybe that's the trick of the deep line, not what it pulls from below, but what it reels back from above. Memory, touch, the thin strand between what we let go and what refuses to stay gone. You ever notice how water remembers things? Not like we do with pictures and words, but deeper, silent, patient. It waits until you stop listening, then whispers everything back. It was August when Henry Mills found the lure. He was 58, sunburned in the stubborn way that only lifelong fishermen get, that cracked red hue you can't wash out. He was walking the shoreline of Lake Merrin, the lake that fed half the town and swallowed the other half. If you believe the stories, he'd almost packed up for the day when the reeds rustled, and there it was, a glint soft and gold, winking through the cattails. He reached down, freed it from a tangle of slick weeds. The thing was perfect, shaped like a small minnow, but made of some metal he didn't recognize. Not chrome, not brass. It looked alive, fluid, like it was breathing. He could have sworn it pulsed when he touched it, faint and warm, like the skin of a newborn. He laughed to himself. Well, ain't that something? Henry had fished these waters since he was a kid. He'd seen handmade flies, chrome spoons, lures that lit up, buzzed, sang, everything short of voodoo. But this? The damn thing almost seemed to look back at him. Still, no angler tosses away a good find. He cast the lure just once, and the line almost tore from his hands. A pike, 2 feet long, fought him, surfaced, and flopped on shore. Before he could even set his rod, before he could remove the hook, another fish washed up, then another. The ripple on the water wasn't wind, it was movement. Schools of fish rising like a boil, eyes bulging, like they were trying to escape something below. He dropped his rod. The lure kept swinging on the line, dripping red water, even though he hadn't gutted a thing yet. By the time the sun slipped down, he'd filled his bucket twice over, and by the time he got home, he couldn't eat a single bite. That night he heard splashing outside his window. Neighbor's dog, probably. Or maybe the lake playing tricks again. But at 3 a.m., when he checked his tackle box to put everything away, the lure was gone. Empty space. Clean. He shrugged, told himself it was stuck back at the lake. Then he closed the lid, and something inside clicked. He opened it again. There it sat, wet, glistening, as if it had just crawled back from the water. For a few days he resisted, He told himself to toss the thing, melt it, bury it, whatever it took. But the pull to use it again grew heavier with each sunrise. He found himself whispering while polishing it. "You want me to fish, huh? That it?" Then one evening, when the wind smelled sour and heavy like algae, he gave in. The lure hit the water, and the lake went still. Then it bucked violently, as though something vast had turned beneath it. Henry froze. The line tightened, then loosened. No fish this time, just silence, and a slow trickle of bubbles. From the deep center, a voice drifted up, faint and husky, like it traveled through gallons of black water. "Feed me." He dropped everything and ran for his truck. Didn't even collect his gear. Days passed. He lit candles, prayed, stopped opening the tackle box. But each morning, the air smelled faintly of moss and wet iron. He stopped sleeping altogether. When he woke one night to damp footprints on the floorboards, leading straight from his front door to where he kept the lure, inside the box, it lay coiled in a puddle of its own making, water seeping from nowhere, and warm, always warm. He whispered, trembling, "What do you want from me?" The house creaked, and the lake outside sighed in response. "Same thing you do, Henry," the voice said, but this time it came from inside his head. "To catch something that matters." He thought maybe it was madness, or age, or loneliness, maybe all of it, but he couldn't stop thinking about that voice, the way it sounded like regret. So one night he drove back to Marin, parked by the old pier, and waded in. The moon hung over the water like a silver eye, glaring down. He tossed the lure. The water cracked open. No other word for it, and a shape rose, black, slick, and impossibly tall. A column of muscle and weed, human and not. Its face, or where the face should have been, rippled with hundreds of tawny fish, their gills fluttering like whispers. "Feed me," it said again, "or be fed." Henry screamed, stumbled, tried to reel the lure back, but the line wrapped around his wrist, tightening like a living thing. He was dragged knee-deep, waist-deep, chest-deep. The lake swallowed his cry, and for a second he felt the memories underneath. Every soul, every small life taken for sport, fluttering below in the dark, waiting to be remembered. He shouted, "Take it, take the damn thing!" The lure slipped from his hand and sank with a faint flash of gold. The voice stopped. Silence. Morning came. A search party found Henry unconscious on the shore, skin pale, clothes slick with mud. He was alive, barely. He told everyone he'd slipped, that he'd hit his head, that he didn't remember much after that. The sheriff believed him. Small town, easy stories. But the bait shop owner, old Frank Byers, didn't. When Frank went through Henry's things, he found the tackle box. Inside, neat rows of spoons, hooks, and one strange gold lure. He picked it up, turned it in his hand. Looks expensive. He didn't notice the slight warmth, or the way the air above the box smelled faintly of algae, or how the water stains beneath it never dried. Henry did. He saw the look in Frank's eyes, how they went distant for just a second, like he was hearing something under the surface, and Henry whispered, voice shaking, "Don't use it, Frank, please, don't." But Frank smiled faintly. What's the harm in a lucky lure? The sheriff said later that Frank's boat was found drifting, empty, lure dangling off the stern. No body, no splash, just circles in the water, ripples that lasted longer than they should have. Henry moved inland after that, far from any lake, but sometimes, in a basin or rowing barrel, he catches the sound, soft and steady, from deep below. "Feed me," and every time, he empties the water out, because water, as I said, remembers things, especially what once belonged to it. I remember the first summer. The water dropped low enough for the steeple to show. People said it looked like a finger poking up from the deep, like something down there wanted to remind us. It was never really gone. The drought had baked Stillwater County for months. The grass in the yard sounded like paper when you walked on it, and the lake, our reservoir, had shrunk to half its usual size. Standing on the cracked shore, you could smell it, that sour, silty scent of something that's been too long in the dark. When I heard about the fishermen, I knew it was starting again. The sheriff found the boat at dawn, its little outboard humming, tracing circles in the shallows. No Henry, just his tackle box and one yellow rain slicker hanging over the seat like he'd stepped out of it mid-motion. That's how folks talk about Stillwater, like it swallows you mid-breath, takes you before you even know it. Henry had radioed about 10 minutes before he disappeared. Sheriff played the tape for me once, down at the diner. Static, then Henry's voice. "You ever see folks standing in the water out here? Looks like they're waving." Then nothing but a long wet gurgle. I drove out the next morning. Curiosity gets you that way. It feels harmless until it's too late. The air shimmered with heat, and the lake looked sickly, like a wound that wouldn't close. The steeple stood crooked in the shallows, coated in brown slime. Just beyond it, part of a schoolhouse roof poked out, shingles rotted to a dull gray. The village was called Dry Bend, long before it drowned under Stillwater 20 years back. They'd moved everyone out in the 60s to make room for the dam, or so the story went. I brought binoculars. Out near the middle of the lake, I saw shapes, dozens of them. Could have been stumps, but they seemed arranged, deliberate, figures shoulder to shoulder, facing the town side. I blinked, and for a second I thought one of them lifted an arm. At Murphy's Tavern. Nobody wanted to talk about it, but that didn't stop them from doing it anyway. Old Rick, who runs the bait shop, said he knew about Dry Bend. They didn't move everyone out, he told me, nursing his beer. Some refused to go. The water came anyway. Rick stared into his glass. When the lake's low enough, they start looking for what they lost. Every drought brings something up. You better stay clear, boy. I told him I was no boy, and planned to take a closer look. He didn't laugh, just said, "Then you best hope they don't mistake you for one of theirs." That night I couldn't sleep. You know that feeling where your house creaks, and it sounds like the world's whispering, "Don't go, don't go." But you go anyway? I drove back to the reservoir with a flashlight and recorder. The moon hovered thin and white, rippled in the water, like it was nervous too. I stood where the dock used to reach, 10 steps above the current line. The figures were clearer now. Men, women, maybe even children. None moved. None made sound. But the air throbbed like a held breath. Then I heard it. Soft splashes. Faint but steady. As though someone were walking up from deeper water toward me. My light caught ripples, spreading from the middle of the lake. Dozens of them. I whispered, God knows why. "Who's there?" Something answered, not with words, but with a sound like the lake itself exhaling. All the figures seemed to pivot slightly, facing me, not the shore. Everyone. I ran back by daylight, because sun makes monsters seem polite. This time I brought my drone, thinking maybe I'd capture the layout from above, but halfway across the lake, the feed glitched into static screen frosting white. Then a frame flickered through, just one, but it showed the church steeple up close. The door was open, and there inside, in the black of that flooded nave, something shone like metal, rows of shapes lining up, shoulder to shoulder. I thought of pews full of parishioners, eyes closed in prayer. Only these weren't praying. They were waiting. That night, the sheriff called me. They found Henry, 3 miles downstream, snagged in driftwood, skin like paper, mouth wide, still holding his fishing rod. The thing was, his lungs were filled with air, not water, like he'd drowned on dry land. The sheriff told me to stop my investigations. Said curiosity's what killed Dry Bend in the first place. I asked what that meant. He hung up. That's when I noticed the damp footprints on my porch. Bare human ones, leading up from the yard to my door, then gone like they'd evaporated. By Saturday, everyone in town was talking about the shapes. Tourists came for photos, until half their phones shorted out from moisture damage. Rick turned up missing, and the sheriff stopped answering calls. The lake was nearly gone now. You could walk across parts of it without sinking. The entire village stood exposed. Street signs, even a rusted playground. And there in the center square, the church doors gaped wide. I filmed as I approached. My voice later on the playback isn't mine. It's dry, shaking. Something's moving inside, I said. Water sloshed. A hand, yes, a hand, slick and colorless, reached around the frame of the door. Then another. The smell hit next, rotten wet earth. They stepped out of the shadows one by one. Faces gray, eyes full of lake water. The frontmost one looked almost like Henry. His expression, mild, almost forgiving, held steady as he raised a hand and waved. I don't remember running, but I found myself at the car, engine screaming. Behind me, water poured from the church, like the building itself was leaking people. It rained the next morning, hard, relentless, the kind that turns roads into rivers. By nightfall, the reservoir was rising again, burying Dry Bend under a fresh layer of silence. The sheriff's office boarded up, Rick's bait shop closed. Folks around here speak softer now, like the air's listening. Sometimes standing near the shore, I swear I see the surface ripple in a way that doesn't match the wind, and I think about the wave, Henry's wave, and how maybe it wasn't a greeting at all. Maybe it was a warning. The drought will come again, and when it does, I know what I'll see first. That damn steeple, breaking the surface, pointing up at the sky, like God himself forgot which way was heaven.